Welcome to This Explainer. You know that feeling when you finally collapse into bed at the end of a ridiculously long, exhausting day, completely drained, but secretly thinking, wait, did I actually accomplish anything meaningful today? Well, if your to-do list feels like a treadmill that you just can't step off, you are absolutely in the right place. We've all been there, right? You're in constant motion, running from one task to the next, but the needle barely moves on the stuff that actually matters. It's a massive trap. So today, we're going to break down a fascinating story that completely redefines how we look at productivity. We're stepping away from the sheer exhaustion of constant activity, and we're going to uncover the absolute power of true effectiveness. Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. Are you actually addicted to work, or are you just addicted to the feeling of being busy? To figure this out, we're going to look at the main character of our source material, a professional named Rohan. Now, think of Rohan as, well, basically the poster child for the modern professional. He was widely known as the busiest person in his city. Everyone admired his hustle. When people asked him how he managed to do so much, he'd flash this proud smile and say he never wasted a single minute. But as we're about to see, Rohan was masking a massive problem under all that hustle.
And that brings us to section 1, the illusion of busyness. Let's talk about motion versus actual progress.
So Rohan's daily life looked absolutely incredible from the outside. His calendar, a tightly packed, color-coded masterpiece. His phone literally never stopped buzzing with notifications, emails, you name it. He looked important. He felt important. But look at this staggering contrast. Every single evening, his smartwatch threw a little party for him for hitting 18,000 steps. He was physically always moving. Yet, his lifelong dream of writing a novel, in 2 entire years, he'd written exactly 18 pages. That is a massive, glaring gap between his frantic daily input and his actual meaningful output.
And honestly, it wasn't just the novel. Let's take a quick walk through this absolute graveyard of scattered efforts. A half-cleaned apartment, 3 separate online courses just eternally stuck at 20%. He enthusiastically bought a guitar that's currently gathering dust, tried detreating, photography, coding, and even Spanish lessons. Hola, right? None of it went anywhere. Do any of these look uncomfortably familiar to you? Because despite collapsing into bed every night, totally exhausted, believing he had worked incredibly hard, Rohan never actually guided anything important across the finish line.
Section 2, the mechanics question. This is where we hit a major, life-changing encounter.
One Saturday morning, while Rohan is doing his usual frantic hustle between a gym session and a networking event, life forces him to slam on the brakes. His car breaks down. He has literally no choice but to pull into the nearest repair shop, which happens to be owned by an elderly mechanic named Mr. Iyer. Now, stepping into this garage deeply unsettled Rohan, because it was strangely quiet. No assistants running around, no loud radio blaring, no TV in the corner, just one old man calmly repairing an engine. Rohan, overflowing with all this nervous energy, immediately demands to know how long the fix will take, complaining loudly that he has 3 appointments to get to. The mechanic just smiles at the restless young man.
Mr. Iyer politely asks Rohan what important work he was rushing off to do. So Rohan proudly unloads his whole exhausting list. Managing projects, learning skills, building his brand, attending workshops, exercising, crushing emails, he lays out his entire frantic life. The mechanic just listens, nods politely, and then drops this absolute mic drop of a question. And which of those changed your life this year? Silence. For the first time in his life, Rohan literally couldn't answer.
Completely stunned, Rohan decides to just sit and watch the mechanic work. Mr. Iyer never rushed. He never once looked away from the engine. Every single bolt was tightened carefully. When another customer showed up, Mr. Iyer calmly told them they'd just have to wait until he finished this specific car. No multitasking, no panic. Curious, Rohan asks if making people wait loses him business. Mr. Iyer just points across the street to this crowded, noisy repair shop. Workers running everywhere, engines roaring, customers shouting. It looked highly productive, right? Probably repairing 20 as many cars a day. But here's the kicker. Half of that noisy shop's customers eventually ended up in Mr. Iyer's quiet garage to get their mistakes fixed.
Mr. Iyer looks right at Rohan and says, "They're busy fixing many cars. I'm focused on fixing one." Wow. That single sentence just lodged itself in Rohan's mind for the rest of the evening. It completely shattered his entire worldview. He suddenly realized that doing things quickly and doing a dozen things simultaneously was absolutely not the same thing as doing things well. All right, section 3, the time audit.
Let's look at measuring actual results. A week after that encounter, Rohan decides to stop relying on his own exhaustion as a metric for success. He sits down and does a hard, brutally honest time audit of his day. And the numbers? Honestly, they are pretty shocking. 2 hours just checking emails, an hour organizing files, 45 minutes watching productivity videos, literally just to feel productive, and a whopping 3 entire hours lost purely to switching between unfinished tasks. Out of an entire exhausting workday, he was spending barely 90 minutes doing actual, meaningful work that moved the needle on his goals. And that brings us to the really uncomfortable truth here, the big lie of hustle culture. Rohan wasn't addicted to work at all. He was hooked on the feeling of being busy. Being constantly in motion, it made him feel important. It made him feel like he mattered. But it certainly did not make him effective. And let's be real, this is a trap that is so incredibly easy for any of us to fall into in our hyper-connected world. Which leads us to Section 4, the Rule of One. How do we actually escape this trap? Rohan realized that knowing the problem is only half the battle. To actually escape this hamster wheel of perpetual motion without progress, he boiled his entire strategy down to a single powerful sentence. Every single morning, before his brain could even think about checking an email or opening an app, he wrote this down. If I finish only one thing today, it will be this. He anchored his entire day around this one core objective. Everything else just had to wait until that one thing was truly officially crossed off the list. But to actually protect that single daily goal, he had to set some absolute non-negotiables. He established 3 strict new parameters. Number 1, pause all new projects. Number 2, no alerts. He completely, ruthlessly turned the endless notifications off. Number 3, stop jumping between tasks. He completely cut out the constant temptations of social media and the fear of missing out. He started protecting his focus like his life literally depended on it.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, breaking an addiction to business, it is brutal at first. That first week felt absolutely impossible. His phone was tempting him. Social media was whispering that everyone else was out there doing way more than him. But he just kept returning to his one task. Fast forward just 3 months, and the contrast is breathtaking. Remember that unfinished novel? It became a finished manuscript. The ignored online course? He earned the certification. His work performance improved so drastically that his manager trusted him with massive new responsibilities. Ironically, everyone thought he was working harder, but he was actually doing way less, just with complete unbroken attention.
Section 5, the fire of focus. Let's head back to Mr. Iyer.
A few months after his big realization, Rohan goes back to visit that quiet little garage. Not for a repair this time, but because he wanted to look Mr. Iyer in the eye and say thank you. When he finds the mechanic, he shares this really profound realization. He says, I finally understand. You didn't teach me how to work. You taught me how to finish. He had finally made that massive mental shift from valuing frantic activity to valuing actual completion.
But the mechanic just softly laughs and tells Rohan he had taught him something even simpler than that. Pointing to a magnifying glass lying right there on his workbench, he shares this beautiful metaphor. When sunlight is scattered, it only gives light. It's just motion. But when you take that exact same sunlight and focus it through a lens, it can start a fire. Human effort works the exact same way.
Listen, being constantly busy might look great to the people around you, but being focused is what will actually change your life. Constant activity only creates motion. It makes you sweat, sure, but it keeps you in the exact same place. Focused effort, on the other hand, that creates results. It starts fires.
So whenever people admire Rohan's productivity today, he quietly thinks back to that small garage. Because the grand lesson of this entire story is incredibly simple. Success doesn't come from doing more, literally never has. It comes from giving your complete, undivided attention to what matters most. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a direct challenge. Stop counting your hours. Stop trying to clear 100 tiny, meaningless tasks just to feel a fake sense of progress. Take a hard look at your day right now, right this very second, and ask yourself, what is the one thing you are going to finish today? Take that focused sunlight, start your fire, and I'll see you in the next one.